Okay, there we go. Okay, we should start now. Okay, so to start it off, hi everyone, I'm Valerie Shu. I'm a Law History Society and oboe performance double major at Vanderbilt University and the founder of 4wordLaw alongside my partners here. I'll let you all introduce yourselves real quick before we dive right in.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Laur. My name is Yufei Xian, and I'm a second year public affairs and cognitive science major at UCLA.
Hey, Laura, thanks so much for having us and doing this interview with us. It's awesome to get to talk with you. I'm Jackson. I'm an econ major at Middle Tennessee State. So, yeah, not too far from Nashville, but thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for having us. I'm Kyu Hyun. I'm a electrical computer engineering and math double major over at Vanderbilt.
So for anyone just finding us, 4wordLaw is a student-run organization that exists because we got tired of legal careers being a black box for anyone without a lawyer in the family. We break down anything from how AI is rewiring legal work to the actual practical path into law school and beyond every day on our newsletter and LinkedIn. Laura, you are our very first interview guest ever, and there's genuinely no one we would rather have to kick this off with. So the first question we have is, most people know you from Young and Restless, but what almost nobody clocks right away is that you're also a real practicing attorney. So I have to ask, when you were a kid dreaming about your future, was it the courtroom or the cameras that came first? What's the actual story of how you ended up chasing both?
Oh boy. Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me as your first guest. I didn't realize that this is the first ever interview you're conducting. And nice to meet everybody. To answer your question, I'm very honored. So I'm a little bit taken aback by the fact that I'm your first interviewee. Let's see. When I was growing up, I did not have law on my radar at all. I grew up in Los Angeles, so the entertainment industry was a bit closer as far as what I was used to. But I am culturally mixed. I'm half Chinese, and my father's family is Jewish. So being an actor was also not an option. So I ended up going into production, and I wanted to do production I thought I wanted to do production for most of my life until I ended up graduating from Vanderbilt University. Vanderbilt, at the time, I dabbled in some of the film classes, but I majored in communications, which it was pretty impractical for the real world. And what do you do with communications when you don't really know exactly how to route it in your life? So I wanted to keep my options open. I ended up working for a management company when I graduated from college. Then I went into a studio and did TV marketing. And then I thought, man, I had my whole life said I thought I'd do production. I thought I'd be in the entertainment industry, but none of this is sticking. None of this is actually satisfying me from just a purpose standpoint. And I ended up having the opportunity to go to China for a little bit. I ended up participating in a local pageant in Los Angeles called Miss LA Chinatown, ended up winning that. And through that, had the opportunity to go to Hong Kong to do Miss Chinese International, which was the first ever time that I had ever been forced in front of the camera. I had never considered that before. I had taken acting classes just because it's something that when you're from Los Angeles, you are, exposed to. But I just didn't see it as a viable career option, as an option culturally and whatnot. But when I got back from Hong Kong, I realized I enjoyed being tasked with the responsibility to have that voice and that presence on behalf of somebody else. And that's what really excited me about acting. So I decided to quit my studio job and become an actor. And as most of that journey goes, for a lot of people, nothing happened for a few years. Like literally, I had no mentors in the industry. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no awareness of how to go about getting my foot in the door. So nothing was happening. And I am a very motivated and ambitious person. I wanted something that I could hold on to for myself. I needed that intellectual challenge. And so I thought, speaking of UCLA, I decided to take some extension courses at UCLA, and I ended up taking a few of their legal extension courses just because I thought I'm horrible at math. I think the legal route is probably more up my alley with language and the communications route. And then I just became really interested in the law from those extension courses at UCLA. I ended up befriending the professor who I had, who at the time was a lawyer at UTA, which is a big agency. We became friends, and he basically encouraged me to just pursue that path a little bit further if I was interested. So I started taking an LSAT course. I started doing LSAT work for fun, not thinking I would become a lawyer. And then I said, oh, I'll take the LSAT, why not? And then I took the LSAT, and me being a competitive person, I wasn't satisfied with my score the first time. So I said, I'm taking it again. So I took the LSAT again for fun. Then I thought, I might as well see where I get in to law school. And so then I applied to law schools locally just because at the time, acting was still a part of my life. And then I got on my first TV show, and I got into law school around the same time. And then I thought to myself, oh no, what have I done? Because I worked so hard for both of these things, and now they're happening at the same time. And then I just thought, I'll just do both. Why not? Both doors are open. I might as well go through them. If one of them closes, one of them closes. But I felt, Valerie and I we had this conversation. I felt, despite what everyone else was telling me, that I could handle both at the same time. So I ended up doing that. And even through law school, I was in denial that I would become a lawyer. And part of that was because I had spent some time in between undergraduate and law school, just living life, trying to pursue, an alternate career path, getting to know myself. And in those 5 years, I had a lot of friends who went to law school straight from undergrad, and they had already burnt out of the legal profession, which is a real thing that I think a lot of people don't talk about. Within 5 years, they had literally burnt out of their big law jobs. So at the time I started law school, I was not disillusioned with the fact that most of the people that I'm going to law school with are not actually going to be lawyers in the long run. So for me, getting a legal education was about the longevity of it, not about that immediate result of getting a big law job, making a lot of money. And, there's that. I was like, I'm here for the education because that is what I can take with me for the long run. So I actually didn't think that I would become a lawyer. And then as it happens, I ended up working during law school. And then I now have a firm. So I kind of did a 180. I became so thankful for my legal career. I'm so grateful for the friends I made in law school, for the education it's provided me. The type of law I do is pretty flexible. I didn't go into big law just because I knew the lifestyle that I wanted and the careers that I was balancing. So I needed something a little bit more flexible. But sorry, that was a very long answer to your question. I was growing up, I had no intentions of becoming a lawyer and it just happened, but I just went through the doors that opened for me, and here I am.
Wow, thank you so much for that very thorough introduction. We really appreciate all your insight. And I love that we had a little crossover here at UCLA.
Mhm.
And from your introduction, it sounds like you're wearing a lot of hats indeed. So whether it be law, acting, or even local public service, as we discovered during our research. So how do you think these worlds crossed over for you? And do you find that skills from one field surprisingly help you in another? Or do you feel yourself consciously code switching when jumping between them?
That's a really good question. I would say in the beginning, I was code switching. I was going to law school while I was on that TV show, and I wasn't telling anybody what I was doing. So I was going to school in the morning and set in the afternoon, and I was keeping my life very separate just because I thought, number one, in the entertainment industry, they would think I wasn't committed. And number two, from a law school perspective, the American Bar Association does not encourage people to work during their first year. And in fact, some law schools prohibit it. USC, where I went to school, I told the dean, I said, I have a job that I'm coming into school with and is allowing me to afford law school, number one, because that's the only way I could go to law school. And I've also worked really hard to get this job, so I'm not giving it up. And essentially from there, I told the dean, if I cannot handle the workload, that's on me, but I just would like to keep this between us. And so I was code switching a lot in the beginning, and it was very exhausting. And then I hit a point where I realized, it was after my first year, and I said, you know what, if this is hurting nobody but me, And so I am at the point in my life where I just need to own everything that I'm doing, even if I don't have any examples of people who've done it before me, because people really had opinions about what I was doing. They're like, you can't do both, you can't do this. And in the beginning, I allowed it to get into my head. And then I thought, no, I know who I am. I can do this. And the people who are going to support me once I am basically honest about everything I'm doing and proud of it, those are the people that are going to stick with me. So I ended up, switching from that kind of code switching exhaustion to just owning everything I was doing. And once I did that, I was so surprised at just the support of people in my life. And that made it really manageable. Like it sounds like a lot, but really, I think everyone is capable of doing it if they know themselves and with the right people around them, and with the right people and support system. I mean, you can do anything. I remember, I think I told Valerie, I think I told you this, I had an internship during law school, and I told it was for an entertainment law firm. And I said, I'm also acting, so I need to be able to go on auditions. At the time, I had a dog. My 16-year-old pit bull recently passed away, but she was younger then. I said, I have a pit bull who I would like to take into the office, and I want to wear my Converse. I just thought, how far can I take this? And he said, okay. I said, wow. So it's one of those things where you can definitely balance it all if you are just surrounding yourself with the right people and you know yourself and your capabilities. So yeah, there was definitely a lot that I took on, but it's not unmanageable. And I encourage everyone to do everything that you think that you can do, despite what everyone else says. Did I answer your questions?
No, yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. One question. Excuse me if I missed this or what type of law exactly do you?
Yeah, I actually didn't say that. I do mostly estate planning and
Okay.
probate. So I help people draft their trusts and their wills and some of the accompanying documents. And then if people don't have a trust, we have, when somebody passes away, they have to go through probate. So we help the families go through what's called a probate to distribute the assets. And then we also help with trust administration. So it's
Okay.
pretty flexible, mostly administrative, not as adversarial. It can go into litigation. I do have a couple of litigation cases, but for the most part, mostly administrative.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think I wanted to talk a bit about creativity in a workplace as rigorous as law. I guess there's this widespread misconception that structure and creativity are somehow or that being a creative can somehow mean a lack of discipline or something like that. Realistically, a lot of famous are skilled business people, and you shed some light on creativity in a workplace like law. Where is creativity most appropriate? Where does it, and what areas might do well to have some of it? Yeah, any of your thoughts on that would be awesome.
That's a really good question. And I think it's so important to remember that it's important to be well-rounded. I think that at the end of the day, law, while it's so contextual, there's, at the end of the day, number one, creativity written in the language, right? Like, how can you approach this language from a way that maybe has fresh eyes, or that this interpretation is a little bit more broad, or how can you basically interact with people? Because while we are going based off language, law at the end of the day is a person-to-person interaction, right? So I think that in itself involves a lot of creativity from a professional standpoint. I think approaching something and having the guts to be creative about it. I think law is one of those professions that it can easily take somebody and sort of make them jaded. It can take somebody and it's easy to say, well, this is how it's done and this is how it's always been done, and you can't change the system. For example, probate has to do with the court system, which is very, it's just like slugs along. It's a long process. The court's always done things this way. But within that structure, how do you still maintain this freshness and this ambition to make things better for your client? And I think that that's a really good way of incorporating creativity into the workspace. But aside from that, I think as a human being, it's important to maintain that creativity for yourself and to maintain that balance for yourself, because like I said, I had a lot of friends who burnt out of being lawyers because it's so easy to be wrapped up into this is how it's done. If you're going into a big law job, you have to dedicate, 80 hours and give up your whole life. And I find that a lot of those people became very exhausted. So I think from a personal standpoint, as well as a professional standpoint, it's so imperative to maintain that creativity just as a human being, and to have that outlet and to have that balance, however that balance manifests in your life, whether it's creativity from an artistic standpoint, or whether it's creativity as far as your curiosity about life. So I just think remembering to keep that balance is so vital, because it's so easy to look at a career as far as like the next step, but what you really are looking at from a legal perspective is like, if you're really doing this to help other people, this is a long game, and whatever's going to help you stick around the longest and maintain your integrity and maintain the fight that you have for your clients, which I think incorporates that creativity, is the best way to go about it. It's a whole mindset. I think that's important. But that was a really great question.
Yeah, thank you. That it sheds a lot of light on, I think, something that probably isn't talked about enough, or maybe like this dynamic that kind of or like a dichotomy that somehow exists, but with advice like that, it could go a long way. And
yeah, I think also
that,
just making sure you have mentors in the space, or people who also support that pursuit, because I think it's really easy when you get into like a dynamic that could potentially be hierarchical in a law firm. It's easy to sort of relinquish who you are as an individual. And I think having someone who advocates for you, who's on your side, to say, hey, live a well-balanced life. Like, you still need this for yourself. This is, even though the workplace might not be the place for creativity traditionally, I think there's a lot of space for you to still bring who you are as a person into the workplace, and to find advocates within the profession that support that.
sweet. Thank you. That's awesome.
So speaking of like creativity, I know it's like, very cliche, but AI has, become very prominent in the work scene and everything. And so recently at 4wordLaw, we recently covered, A24's sort of research partnership with Google DeepMind. I don't know if you saw that or not, but like for those of you who missed it, sort of A24 is like a renowned indie film studio, and it's home to fan favorites like, Everything Everywhere All at Once and Lady Bird and a lot more films. And it had just partnered with Google DeepMind, which is like a leading AI research lab, to sort of jog their creativity in the filmmaking process. And the deal basically marks Google's first equity investment in a Hollywood studio. And as an aspiring engineer, I was sort of curious on your perspective. Like, what are your thoughts on sort of like a very major indie studio leveraging AI like this? And where do you think we should draw the line between sort of AI as like a collaborative tool versus like a replacement for like human creativity?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big question. And right before this, I was looking at a video of like a vertical channel that basically for $150 made an entire vertical series using AI actors. I do think AI is a really valuable tool, and at the end of the day, it's here to stick around. So we do need to know how to incorporate it in a way that doesn't eliminate that creativity that we talked about, doesn't eliminate that human quality. I don't think it's worth being afraid of it. A lot of people are resistant towards it, but the fact is it's here to stay. So how do we incorporate that into what we're making and what we can be proud of? Art, as far as, we're talking about art and law, right? Art it's always been an evolving, essentially an evolving entity. And this is just now like the new way we're doing art, and we have to figure out how to protect ourselves from a legal perspective. I think it's such a big question that I don't have the answers to. I'm sort of looking at it like all I can pay attention to is what I'm doing. I have a lot of friends in the industry who are very, they're hypothesizing about what can happen with AI, which I think is very valuable. But I have noticed that I think personally my energy is best spent just keeping my nose to the grindstone and doing what I do. And I can't change what's happening with AI. I just have to be prepared and ready for what I do. And from on the legal end, I was talking to somebody last night about how a lot of lawyers are also using AI for their arguments. And it's not a perfect science. it's quoting fake cases, and like judges have been getting in trouble because their clerks are using AI. So I think it's not a perfect system right now, and I think capitalizing on that intelligence gap is important because there's no replacement for that human energy and that human creativity. But I am curious to see how it changes everything. Some big deals, like you said, are being made with AI, so it's here to stay. We just have to figure out how to live with it, I guess.
Have you seen any changes in sort of your workflow maybe, or maybe in your workplace after, AI has come up? Have you seen any changes?
I have not, because luckily my type of law is still pretty antiquated in a way. I don't know if this is something that you guys would relate to, being on the younger generational side, but probate, we still have to mail things out. From a legal perspective, the statutes haven't changed. We have to mail things out within, a notice of hearing has to be sent out 15 days before. Nobody checks their mail anymore. So, but we have to publish when somebody passes away and we're opening a probate, we have to publish it in a newspaper. No one's reading the newspaper, but according to statute, we have to do that. So my type of law is still pretty in the dark ages, which actually I think has shielded a lot of it from AI. So I actually don't use much AI in my legal work. A lot of it is I draft documents. I also I consider myself a little bit behind in technology, so I prefer to do things manually a lot of times. Even, for example, making a trust, a lot of times people assume we're just going off of like this boilerplate trust and inputting names and this and that, but I actually prefer to go through and like create the trust for somebody. So I'm a little bit old school, and I think that is a testament to the fact that I work with someone who sort of instilled those old school values in me. I make house calls. We work with a lot of elderly people, so I make house calls. I forget to bill for emails and phone calls, and I don't, I'm not as I think diligent about being like a shark. Like I'm sort of like, this is a human industry. I want to maintain the humanity in it.
I see. That was really interesting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Quick question, maybe like if you don't feel comfortable answering this, great, but just curious, some things I've been seeing on like actors talking about trademarking identity. Has that been a big thing in entertainment at all? Have you seen anyone? Is that the next move? Is that the thing now?
I don't know. I think I haven't engaged in conversations with other actors about trademarking their identities, but what I have seen, and I've gone through this myself, is our contracts have changed a little bit when we do projects. Just sort of the protecting our image and our likeness. Some projects, in the past, you would basically allow them to use certain images in perpetuity and allow them to do whatever they need to do for the project. But I think right now there's just a little bit more, I suppose, protections put in place as far as what they're able to do with the footage they get, and then how they're able to sell that footage maybe in the future for marketing purposes. I think, this is just from a personal example, so I can't speak about other people's contracts, but where it came into place with one of my contracts was basically promoting the project afterwards. It's like, oh, well, we can then use her likeness to promote this project and create some sort of marketing thing. And we said, no, like, I'd be happy to, if needed, do the marketing myself and, whatever you need. So I think there's just a little bit more like anticipation, like what can be done with this image and how do we protect people against that? But I know I'm going to ask some of my actor friends about the trademark issue. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's cool. I was fascinated, like just everything, like new things every day, that was just one of them. But
Yeah, for sure.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So in our last like kind of personal talk, I know we were talking about like kind of our identities as being like Asian and Chinese in the legal industry. I was just thinking, like, what got you into like pageantry? Like, for example, I see you're very active on like the American Born Chinese Foundation, and you go to galas like the Chinatown Service Center. So I was wondering what inspired you to be an advocate in this space.
Yeah, I think it was a desire to get closer to my culture and to understand that part of me. I was raised primarily around I would say, non-Chinese people in my schooling. Vanderbilt, is not particularly diverse. It's in Nashville, right? There are my older cousin who is full Chinese went to Vanderbilt, which is why I knew about Vanderbilt, but there wasn't, a huge Asian population when I went. And so I would say when I graduated from college and I became sort of my own person and I had more independence over my life and awareness of where I wanted it to go, one of those keys was really understanding where I came from. I'm very close to my family. My grandparents were very involved in the Chinese community in Los Angeles. And this opportunity came about as sort of like a way to lure me into understanding the culture from the inside out. And then knowing that if I were to represent the Chinese community in this capacity, I would also be seeing my grandparents around town. I would get to know their friends. I would get to know the organizations they're part of. So I would say that motivated me, as well as just motivating me to understand what the life, I didn't have that many Asian friends. I was the Asian friend. And I was like craving that in my life. And now I would say most of my friends are Asian. But once I won the pageant, which I didn't expect to do, I wanted to go through this experience of like the training, just because that in and of itself was giving me like a cultural awareness and just putting me in that environment. But then when I won, it led to a year of basically representing the Chinese community when it came to philanthropic events, when it came to moderating, for example, like business briefings between the mayor and Chinese businessmen who came into town. Anything that the Chinese Chamber of Commerce was connected to as far as business, philanthropy, community, I was sort of like the figurehead that represented them. And through there, and this just goes for anything in life, you make connections and you maintain those connections. So the Chinatown Service Center, I ended up maintaining those connections. So now I MC a lot of their events. As far as like the ABC Foundation, that was actually through an entertainment connection, but knowing that I was very involved with the Chinese community. And I think whenever you're given the opportunity to represent something, you're doing it because you're not just doing it for your own like personal gain. You're representing something because you actually care about the thing you're representing. And I think that people could tell that when I put my face on something, I wasn't doing it so that I could get a pat on the back. I was doing it because I either wanted to promote or understand and further the cause of what I was representing. So I found that to be it like awoke a passion in me just to represent my community. My mom's an immigrant. My family is mostly made up of immigrants on that side. So I really wanted to understand where they came from and where I come from.
Yeah, I like really relate to that because the funny thing, I also heard about Vanderbilt from like a friend that I made from like a music camp, and she was Asian also, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know like a school in the South could have like Asian people. Like that wasn't really something that I knew about, and she like totally convinced me to come. So I'm glad like now we have like a lot more representation at our school now.
I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think that I purposely wanted to go to school in the South because it was different than how I was raised. I mean, Los Angeles, I think I took for granted how diverse it is and just the environment I grew up in, being mixed and having all the juxtapositions around me in a very natural way. When I went to Vanderbilt, it was a little bit of a culture shock, but in a way that I knew was leading to growth in myself. And also me being there, hopefully just by being me, would lead to growth for other people. And I had one conversation in particular in college that I'll never forget. I won't go into like the full details here, but it was a bit of racism that had happened. And it was this person who basically was just regurgitating something that he had been raised to say about interracial couples. And I basically, just literally in this same tone, I wasn't, upset because I understood he came from a different place. I said, well, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm from a really different place than you. I am from a mixed marriage. And at the time, I was also in a mixed relationship. So I said, so suffice it to say, I feel differently about interracial couples. And he just kind of got embarrassed, didn't say much. And then a year later, he came up to me, and he was like, for the Vandy people here, he was running across the like central library. He was running across the lawn and I heard my name and there's this like big football player running at me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And he was like, Lauren. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I've been thinking about that conversation that we had. I was like, oh yeah? And then he basically told me, he goes, I realized I don't actually think that about interracial couples. He was like, that is what I was taught to regurgitate. He was from Alabama, small town. He goes, I didn't see interracial couples where I'm from. That was what I was taught to regurgitate. But then I thought about, like, do I actually believe that? And then it took him a year to just look around and realize, no, I don't believe that.
Mhm.
And he was like, so thank you. And I was like, no, like, thank you, because that was the harder thing to do. That was like coming up with that self-awareness and actually telling me about it. That was the harder thing to do. And so in a way, it's like, we are whatever community you're from, whether it's ethnic or whether it's economic or religious or whatever, you are a representative of where you're from. And I think being able to share that with other people is a gift. So I don't take my ethnicity lightly, which is why I was also very passionate about getting involved. Also because let's just point out the elephant in the room. I'm not full Chinese, right? So it's like I was faced with, like, am I Chinese enough? And it was almost as if I'm trying to, like, show people, like, I'm working really hard to show you that I, like, love this part of myself and I care about it. And this is how I identify. Like, I'm just as much this as I am this. So, yeah, I took that really, really seriously. And I think representation is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think our school, Vanderbilt, has changed a lot. Like, for example, I'm in freshman year in Sutherland, it's a dorm at Vanderbilt, for context for viewers out there. But, like, I think our school now does so much to, like, really represent different cultures. Like, we had, like, a whole entire, like, week long a celebration for Chinese New Year, which I was, like, so surprised about. I was like, I didn't even know, like, my professor, like, he's a live-in professor, so I didn't even expect that he would know about it. So it's really nice to hear.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, I thank you so much for sharing that story, Laura. I'm sure it'll be very empowering for many of our readers out there. And speaking of Vanderbilt, I know you and Valerie connected through the Vandy in Hollywood program at Vanderbilt, which I think is such a great, like, a love mentorship program. But at the same time, I know that it's very apparent to many of our readers that law is still a very much gate-kept field. So with that said, what advice do you have for our aspiring lawyers on finding mentors who are truly willing to connect with you and also advocate for you?
That's a really good question. And I would say this is not just restrictive to the legal community. Finding mentors in general is a process that it's a personal process. You have to find somebody that advocates for you in a way that feels authentic to where you want to go. I've gone through a few different mentors myself, from the beginning of my career till now. And I think finding a mentor, you can, some of the mentors that I found that I thought were really valuable were through, like, leadership organizations, actually not through work. It was this one was actually through, like, a Chinese leadership organization that I applied for that, like, pairs you with, it's called C100. It pairs you with people in your profession. I met people at networking events. I met people, don't be shy about asking for what you need, because you'd be surprised who's already in your community. All you need is a web that someone's like, oh, I have someone. And like I said, keep in touch with people, but don't be afraid to understand if somebody shifts in your life from being that mentor, and then maybe when you outgrow someone or your priorities shift. I think you always need to be aware of where you need to go and not let anybody else tell you where you need to go. So I think having a mentor is a really powerful tool, but I don't think it should be, you shouldn't be modeling your path after somebody. It should be someone who, I think a really good mentor is someone who's like, how else can I help you where I don't have the capability, because you should soar. So I think finding a mentor is really important, and again, going back to creativity, be creative in how you look for mentors. They can come from anywhere, really. And like, you'd be surprised, even outside of the legal field, how many people have mentored me for things that apply to my legal field, because it's just life. It's just support. It's just someone who might have, financial knowledge, which actually transfers into my field. So I think having an open mind about where you get those mentors, but also recognizing what you need and when you are shifting paths and your priorities is really important. But yeah, I think that goes back to creativity, really.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that advice.
Yeah. Any other questions?
And I think maybe like just along those lines, since we are speaking about Vanderbilt, just like if you could reflect back on your experience, your undergrad at Vanderbilt, what are some skills and experiences that you acquired during this time that you think really helped you like stand out during like either law school admissions or during law school itself?
That's a really good question, and it sort of relates back to something I think I forgot to mention with one of your earlier questions, is like everything that you learn comes together in some way. Even if you think that it's not applicable, every single thing that you're doing eventually comes together to complete the puzzle. Even if you feel like it's not productive, that's also very productive. Like knowing, like when I was at Vanderbilt, I thought I wanted to go one way, right? I was majoring in something that doesn't really have an application to what I'm doing now. But when I look back on that, I say it didn't have a professional, direct, tangible application, but everything I learned, whether it's, you know, how to work, how to think, how to balance my life. I think Vanderbilt is really good at, I can only speak about Vanderbilt, but I think Vanderbilt's really good at pushing that balance, which I think has helped me now, is when to work, when to play, when to, you know, be in the thick of things and when to have some isolation and just focus. I would say that my mom actually told me this, because even when you're in a stage in life where you're not sure how the pieces are going to come together, bloom where you're planted. You don't know why you're experiencing this right now, and there's no way for you to understand that until the thing happens later that applies back. So just bloom where you're planted, because you just never know how that skill set will serve you, whether it's mental resilience, whether it's just like a little factoid, meeting somebody, you just never know. So I would say my experience at Vanderbilt as a whole holistically was just, it helped me be the person I am today. And I think the character development is what's going to carry you through your life.
Oh, I love that. Thinking about it through like a character development like sense. It's like a very much ongoing process instead of like just striving for a single like endpoint.
I think that a lot of people, and it's hard when you're in the moment, people tell you do this, 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 and then you'll get result A, B, C. And sometimes I think that's really short-sighted, because at the end of the day, what it has to do with is mind. It's building that mindset that can allow you to do anything, to be adaptable. I think adaptability is one of the most important skill sets you can have in any career, because things are going to happen. Like life happens. You have no control over most of the things that happen in life. But what you do have control over is your adaptability, how you're able to, be helpful towards other people, resilient. And I think at the end of the day, your character is the most important thing. And that's what carries you through. And that will lead to the results you want eventually, if you are the person that has qualities that can benefit you, right? Like, who do you want to be? And I think that's the most important thing. To be philosophical about it, I suppose.
I actually have a question about your time at USC Law. So some of our viewers and subscribers are actually currently in law school right now. So I was wondering if you could give me kind of some insight, like was there like a difference with like how your day-to-day life was, or like interacting with your classmates that was like different from like undergrad versus professional school?
Big difference, I would say. And most of that difference was because I had taken a break in between, which I can only speak from my own experience. I'm really happy that I did. I think that by taking that gap, I was able to really clearly identify how I work, whereas a lot of people go straight through, and nothing wrong with going straight through. I think that's wonderful. But I think if you do go straight through, just remember at the end of the day, law school has a really, it's a metaphor, but have you heard the term crabs in a bucket?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's like law school is a way of kind of making everyone feel like you're crabs in a bucket. So like there's this bucket and you're operating within this bucket, and that you have to do, practice tests, you have to make outlines, you have to do all these things that like lead to success in law school. You have to, do all the case briefings. I had to remove myself from the bucket and say, do I function? Some people function really well as crabs in a bucket. I do not. So I wasn't going to the library studying with my friends in group settings because that's not how I work. I handled law school very non-traditionally because I had a job. I was working on that TV show. So I had to be super efficient with my time. I could not spend any additional emotional energy case briefing if I did not have the time to do that. I had to work smarter, not harder. So I don't know if my advice for law school is like kosher, but I really do think working smarter, not harder is the key. And this is not good advice, but like I never did a case brief in law school because I know myself. I never did a practice test in law school because I know myself, and the way that I operate is under pressure. If I did too many practice tests, I would burn out by the time the actual test came. So it's just about knowing yourself and how to work. And I had already developed that over the course of my undergraduate career, and then having those like few years of understanding myself. When it came to the bar, for example, and my friends make fun of me all the time for this, which again is not like the best advice to give, but it worked for me. So it's just about finding what works for you. So again, I had to work smarter, not harder. And when I was taking the bar, I was also testing for a TV show. So I was like, literally like I took the bar and then I was doing a producer session like right after the bar. So I was like mentally split. So I was like, how do I maximize this time? And I actually utilized YouTube a lot. YouTube people are paying so much money doing all these bar review classes, spending 11 hours straight. Like I said, if I'm in the car, if I'm getting ready for the day, I'm just like listening to these YouTube videos about contract law and Civ Pro. And I actually looked at YouTube videos that were catered towards second-time bar takers, because even though it was my first time as a bar taker, the second-time bar takers are just being taught strategy to pass the test. And that's all you need to do, because it's like when you're taking your entrance exams for university, how much of that do you actually use in college? None. It's just about learning how to take the test. As a lawyer, I'm not using what I studied for in the bar. So it was just about passing the test. So I actually employed strategies from these like second time bar taking tips, and it worked. Yeah, but it's like I just had to get creative because I knew that my time was limited. So I would say my biggest piece of advice is don't get caught up in the crabs in a bucket mentality. Try and take a step back and just recognize how you work and how you function. And that's what you need to pay attention to. And to enjoy the time. I think so many people were just not enjoying their time in law school. And as someone who graduated from law school, now I just feel like I don't have the time or the energy to go back to school again. School's really wonderful. It is a really unique, weird microcosm that you're stuffed into. And it is so fun when you take out the like pressure of having to perform. You'll never get that experience after that. So a lot of times, like when you're in law school, that's probably most of these people's last degree that they're going to get, because it's a doctorate, right? So just enjoy that time. Like enjoy that you're in school, because life's going to get pretty real after that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good like kind of mantra to have, because like sometimes I feel like at this like kind of time and age, I feel like even a lot of undergrads are super caught up with like recruiting and networking before like actually having fun in college, which is, I kind of relate to this. I kind of got my head wrapped up like that during undergrad. So
Well,
yeah.
it's hard not to. I mean, there's a lot of pressure. And I think back to my vanity days. I'm like, I wish I could go back to those days and just be present and enjoy it. So I think, yeah, like school's a really wonderful time in your life. So, and at the end of the day, you'll be matched up with the profession and the job, the company, the firm that you're supposed to end up at. If you, like, I had friends who stressed their way through law school. They're making a lot of money now, but they are not living a good quality of life because they ended up at an equally stressful firm. And then I had friends who kind of were just like honest about where they were, and they are now like the balance is a lot better, because I think you end up where you're matched, I think. So yeah, just be present, enjoy this time. It's unique and weird. And even the times I pulled all-nighters, I had to remind myself, I'm like, I'm doing this voluntarily. This is something I chose to do. So here we are.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering, Jackson, do you want to add anything?
Maybe we throw in a lighthearted question. No, No, these have all been great. Like, I love the conversational feel. I love that we can, have these discussions with you. Maybe like specific to USC. I know the three of us, and possibly Q, are all looking at applying to law schools, specifically in California.
Hmm.
And I know USC is definitely going to be on the list. I hope to be able to tour it when I'm in California, like next week. But is there anything like specific to that campus that maybe you enjoyed or would have us look out for, or anything like that? Any like,
Yeah, something that I did during law school, which like it wasn't available, this knowledge like wasn't available, which I think is a real shame. So you can spread the word. So basically when you apply or when you're signing up for your semester at USC, you pay for a certain number of credits. If you already have accumulated those credits in previous years, you've still paid for a certain number of credits. So you now have basically paid for an additional credit or two. And what you can do is actually take those credits and audit any class at any of the schools at USC. So I ended up auditing some of the classes at the cinematography school just for fun. I took like a self-defense class where we learned like Russian floor tactics. I was like, why not? I already paid for this credit. There was like a hip hop class. So it's just a way to maximize your experience. Yeah, you can literally audit classes at any of the other schools. And some people were able to have their classes count towards their law degree, actually. I didn't want that pressure. I just wanted to take classes for fun. But yeah, I think that's something to look out for if you end up, going to USC. I would say, I only played locally. I did like USC, UCLA, Southwestern, and Loyola. Something that I would say is the first test of law school is negotiate your scholarship. And I failed that first test of law school because everything is negotiable. And that's what I didn't realize. If there's any mentality that I came out of law school with, it's you can literally negotiate anything or at least try. And when I got to the admissions day or our first, orientation day, everyone's talking about how they negotiated their scholarship. I thought, what? Because I thought it was like everyone like pretty much gets a merit scholarship and then you can negotiate past that. I had no idea. And you're stuck with that scholarship all 3 years, but the tuition keeps going up. So that's just something to keep in mind is don't be afraid to ask. That's the first test of law school is ask for what you want and negotiate your scholarship. If they say no, they say no. But apparently they didn't say no to any of my friends who negotiated their scholarships.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great advice. Yeah. Definitely want to keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's just something for any of the law schools, which is a thing. So but I
Sweet.
didn't know.
Thank you.
Yeah. I hope that saves you some money and some time.
Yeah, we'll see how much we can haggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Since we're almost near our end of time, I was wondering if anybody else had any questions, or Laura, do you have any questions for us? Maybe we're gonna kind of do a reverse role.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, where is everybody in the process of law and how did you guys end up becoming a part of this organization?
I'll start first. I'm in my second year now of Vanderbilt, so I know for sure so far that I want to apply straight through because I feel like I'm like very 100% sure that I want to have law in my future career. I'm just super passionate about it. I'm like always wanting to learn more about the profession. Yeah, and I was like hoping to do like entertainment or like corporate law. And yeah.
Love that.
I can go next. Yeah. And like Valerie, and I think Q and Jackson as well, we're all incoming second years. So I'm currently at UCLA. I'm studying public affairs and cognitive science. And I'm also pretty certain that I do want to have law as my future career. But I think for me, I'm still exploring like the different areas of law because I think there are a lot of aspects that I'm interested in. And I think just for like my major combination as well, like the policy making space as well as the human cognition aspects I'm both like very interested in. So like I feel like intellectual property as well as like physical property and like urban planning, I'm all like very interested in. So I'll see like where that exploration takes me in the future.
I have a cousin who works in urban planning, actually. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh,
Yeah,
wait, that's so cool.
for
I know
LA.
LA, it's like a very like prevalent field, a very like relevant field right now.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that's actually what my dad studied when he was at USC. So it's cool to, yeah. But I'm a sophomore. Um, econ. I with the econ undergraduate degree, I think probably leaning toward I have kind of like two camps for law in my mind that I've kind of narrowed it down to. I think between either real estate and like title or the other would be like securities, mergers and acquisitions or like IP, something along those lines. That I love working in like startup spaces. I think it's just exciting, the energy. It's all there. So yeah, that's what I'm drawn toward. But
Nice.
yeah.
I do a lot of stuff with title and whatnot because that has to do with people's estates. So that's a really necessary field.
Yeah. I'm just all about the details. Like I don't really get tired of, looking at things closely. So I think that's probably why.
That's a good lawyer mentality.
I'm sort of the odd one out here. So I'm actually I'm an engineer, so I'm doing electrical computer engineering over at Vanderbilt. For now, I'm not thinking about law school. They might rope me into it. You never know. But I'm like, first of all, I sort of helped start it because I was just interested in tech and I just wanted to write about tech. And engineering is becoming such a big thing now, and I think sort of providing that engineering insight into everything is very helpful nowadays. And also just very interested in doing my own things like startups and stuff like that. And I know for a fact having that legal background is, always going to be helpful because, everything's a legal battle nowadays. So it's basically why I'm here.
I love that. I think it's really cool. You guys all come from very sort of diverse backgrounds that have led you here. I think that keeping it up, like it sounds like all of you know the importance of law in society, basically, like with the engineering, to be honest. I think that's such a good mentality to have because no matter what you do, like even with engineering, I work with this foundation that supports the Crane Safety Research Center with the mechanical engineers at Georgia Tech. And we went for a conference and there's a whole law and engineering class because engineers at the end of the day have to be aware of regulations and legislation. And we're all about what are the needs from industry that we can help change legislation to make tower cranes safer. So there's like such an intersection that people don't recognize. And that has to do with public safety. So that's actually huge. And engineering in general is like the backbone of society. People don't realize. That's really cool. And I think it's just really cool how you all found your way to this. And regardless of what happens with your legal, careers or interest, law will always be there. It'll always be there if and when you decide to, to dip your toes in. But I think that's really wonderful. We have UCLA and USC. Basically, my whole family went to UCLA, and then I went to USC. Yeah, I didn't get into UCLA law school actually. That's a really hard school to get into. So, I didn't even get waitlisted at UCLA.
Yeah, there's a huge rivalry going on there. I know when I was touring UCLA, there was like this whole thing about the UCLA versus USC rivalry. So it's really fun
yeah.
to hear.
It's like ingrained from the beginning of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
good to add that like forward law. I kind of started this with my friends here because I was mentioning this to you, Laura, like about how when I was doing music and law history society, how I would get so many like confused like looks like I don't know, you can do both. Like, is that possible? Like, shouldn't you be majoring in like political science or like history or philosophy? Something that is like actually useful, quote unquote, to like your application to law school. So I kind of wanted to start this to show like young, like aspiring lawyers that like you can have both. You can include your hobbies and aspirations into your legal career. So that's why I feel like you're so perfect for this like first meeting, because how many people in this world can be both an actress and a lawyer? Like
Hopefully more people after this conversation. I'm trying to spread the word. I think law schools, graduate school in general, is really interesting because they really do appreciate, because they expect people to have lived a little bit of life and gotten to know themselves in undergraduate. And I think that USC actually seemed to be really proud of the students that came from, that just had other hobbies. Like I remember during orientation, they were mentioning people in our class, and one guy was a locksmith, and like they loved that about him. One guy basically like grew up in the Appalachians and had no exposure to anything else, and they were like, we have him now. One person was like, Department of Defense. Like there was so many. I think the interesting thing about law is it does bring together a lot of different personality types, because like Jackson, it sounds like you're pretty good at math. A lot of lawyers are not good at econ or math or like anything like that. So I think to have that background is really, interesting. I think it just pulls people together from very different skill sets. And I think that ultimately law schools are actually really proud of that, and they want a diverse set of skills because there's all these different types of law. And like we were mentioning, literally law touches every single industry, from engineering to urban planning to econ. Like it touches everything, real estate. So there's no skill that goes unused when it comes to becoming a lawyer, or at least getting into law school. And I think highlighting what would make you an alternative candidate is actually a really positive thing.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like maybe actually a fun thing maybe we can do is for our viewers watching, maybe like what is like one kind of like quote or kind of like piece of advice, maybe like a mantra that you would like send to our viewers
about law school?
Yeah, maybe about like just like maybe in law school or life in general. Kind of just like what message do you want to leave us with?
I would say it's that piece of advice that I was given when I was faced with that crossroads of TV show or law school. And my friend said, who are you to close a door that opens? So I think my piece of advice is, if the door is open, go through it. Even if it's multiple doors, just go through them. Life is long, so just go through them.
That's so great. Oh my God, I can't believe you just like pulled that out. That's amazing. Thank you.
Well, that's something that she pulled out that I'm years later just in awe of, and has actually given me the confidence, not single-handedly given me the confidence, but gave me the permission, I suppose, to like just do it. Even if I don't see anybody else doing it, this is my life. The older you get, the more you distance yourself from the expectations people had of you, which I think culturally is also very difficult. It's taken me a long time to like make that distance between what is expected of me and what do I actually want with my life. And ultimately you realize the people who expect really high things of you only want what's best for you. That's what so what's best for you, you actually know deep down. So trust yourself.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, to end it off, I don't know if you want to do this. Like, should we take like kind of like a group picture, like a kind of like a all screen?
Whatever you want to do. This is your first interview, so I'm at your. I'm open to whatever you want to do.
I was gonna say, like, should we do like the Vanderbilt like sign, like the
what is the reverse? I can't. This is like the reverse camera, so I don't know which one is. What does this look like? Does it look like VU for you, or does it look like UV?
Wait, try the other hand. I think that's right. Yeah, that looks.
I never. Should I just
maybe just do both?
What about the non-Vandy people? Is this VU?
We can do like our own star sign, like school signs. I'll do like Forza for UCLA.
We might just have to transfer.
Yeah, I think this is a sign.
But also, I'm also fight on, so I think I have to do this.
Oh.
That's funny.
Does this look like VU to you?
It does.
Okay, so then VU and fight on.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, that's perfect.
You can do your own school signs, everybody. Okay. Let me do my screenshot. Command. See, okay, ready, guys? Jackson, do you have a school sign?
Not at all.
You can integrate with Vanderbilt. You can just do anchor down.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, 3.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Reverse it. At
Other-
least on mine. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Thank you.
We should probably all stick a normal one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Without it, yeah.
I'm just trying to rep the school as much as possible.
I love it.
Okay, normal one. 3, 2, 1. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Guys, this was so fun, and I'm so honored to be your first interview. I didn't realize, and that just makes me feel so loved. So thank you.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much
thank you
for
so
doing this, yeah.
much for your time.
Really great questions. I feel like you guys all have really great futures ahead of you. And send me, you said you do daily newsletters?
Yeah, we do
I
weekly
become a part of this?
newsletters.
Okay.
Yeah, and we post like kind of like every day on LinkedIn, like kind of like we do like rundowns of like what's going on in the legal industry.
Well, I'd love to support you guys however I can. So if I can be on the news, the subscription list, let me know so I can read what you guys have coming out. And if you all have, now you've met me, if you need anything, we're talking about mentorship or, if you have any questions, you're going, you're visiting LA. If you guys need anything, just let me know. I'm here. I'm a resource. And I think, speaking of mentors, this is a really great place to meet people who might be able to offer you advice and mentorship. So don't be shy to reach out. Valerie can share my email with you guys and my contact information. So
Thank you so much.
wherever I can.
Thank you so much.
Sweet,
That's
thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, we'll have to keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of last question.
Yeah, of course.
Sort of a side question, but which dorms did you live in throughout your 4 years at Vandy?
I lived in, is it still there? Kassam?
Oh
Yeah,
Kassam's still there, yeah.
It got totally demolished since I've been there, and I think it's now rebuilt to be really nice. When I was there, it was still like the barracks that were used for the old like GI Bill people, and it was concrete, like it was all the singles, like every room was a single. And so I was in Kassam, and then I was in a Mayfield with some of the in Kassam, and we did like a service project. What was that reaction, or what's going on with Mayfields?
I don't know, like so I'm in Zeppos. I'm gonna be in Zeppos, and kind of like I don't know, Mayfield. Everybody just says, "Oh, it's just super far away."
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. You guys are the new generation that started off on Peabody campus, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I was never on Peabody. That was like, but I would eat there because the food was so much better. So we were sort of roughing it when I was there. But yeah. So then I lived in a Mayfield, and then I lived in a Chafin, which is right by the Mayfield. And I lived in Towers, which has since been demolished. That's how old I am. So yeah, I lived in Towers. But yeah. Does everyone still live on campus?
Yeah, virtually basically everybody lives on campus. Yeah. But our school, we were like, I feel like a lot of students agree that Vanderbilt has been like in constant construction. Just like everything is being demolished, everything is being rebuilt. Like it's so crazy.
They like live streamed the towers getting demolished. I didn't watch it, but yeah, I remember. What is in the tower's place now? Did they rebuild?
I believe it's probably Zeppos actually, because Zeppos is pretty new, I think, relatively.
Is there a Quiznos in the basement still?
I have no idea. Wait,
I know Branscombe got knocked down though, which is why most juniors live off campus. Usually it's just seniors. Yeah, but they just knocked it down, so Branscombe is now.
Branscombe was like, for the people who didn't go to Vanderbilt, that's where I wanted to live freshman year and sophomore year, because that was like the fun doubles and triples dorms. And then I got placed in Kassam. I actually wrote a letter to Vanderbilt when I got in, before the housing. I was like, so my whole life I've been an only child, and all I've ever wanted is a roommate. And I made this like sob story letter, and then they placed me in the singles. They're probably like this weirdo. But I loved my time at Vanderbilt though. Still friends with like my best friends are from Vanderbilt. What a great time. Just college in general. Like college is incredible. You guys have so much ahead of you to be a sophomore again.
Yeah.
To be a sophomore.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear. Yeah,
And
we're
pull
super
all-nighters while you can. I can't pull all-nighters anymore. To do work.
Yeah, we're so
Just for
grateful
some
that.
context,
Oh yeah, go
yes, sir.
ahead.
I just wanted to share that, like, on that note, I'm actually like in Spain right now, and it's like 2 a.m. here.
Oh
So
my
I'm on
gosh.
like,
What are you studying abroad or are you?
yeah, it's like I'm doing an internship program through our school's like global internship program. Yeah.
I love.
So
Are
I'm
you?
here in Madrid. Yeah, it's been really fun, but yeah. But
Oh
I'm
yeah,
still
it's
like jet lagged, so
amazing.
I'm not too sleepy now. So I think this is actually like a great time for me to like be awake and do
Wow.
have this conversation with you.
Are you in the whole summer?
I'll be here for like 8 weeks
Oh,
until like mid August. Yeah.
that's amazing. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You can also, people don't realize you can also study abroad when you're in law school.
Oh,
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not just because I had, my job, but I had friends. I visited my friends who were in Barcelona. I visited them during law school. So something to take advantage of.
yeah, good note for viewers. I don't think a lot of people know about that actually.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
know that either. And then there's a lot of things. Also, I think law school is very intimidating, and I didn't know anything about law school when I went. So if you don't know anything about it, you'll be fine. But congratulations, that's amazing. I love Spain.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so hopefully I didn't interrupt anybody this time. Any last questions before we kind of end this off?
No, thank you so much for your time. Genuinely, I
Yeah,
mean,
thank you so much.
No, thank you
Thank you
guys.
so much.
This was like so inspiring for me.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super grateful because we've been kind of just like, because we want like people like us kind of to have as many resources and opinions of people out there. And we're just super grateful that you're here to talk with us because it can be understandably hard to get a hold of like legal people. And yeah, so we're just super happy you're here.
Well, I'm super happy that you asked me to be here, and like I said, I'm available, so feel free to reach out. And then if you need anything legal or not related, just questions about life or whatnot. So I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
And we
all.
hope you have a great rest of your summer and your day.
Thank you. You as well in Spain. And yeah, everyone, I hope you have a great summer and enjoy this time.
thank you.
Yeah, have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.